Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Franklin Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, December 7th, 2022. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Sprague.
Here.
Mrs. Witkowski. Here. Mr. Alexandrovich.
Here.
Mrs. Sapersky.
Here.
Dr. Khan.
Here.
Dr. Beer. Here. We are all present.
Thank you, and the meeting has been properly posted. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Forest Park Middle School presentation. Ms. Rosensky, please. We're all dresses.
All right. Hi, everyone. We kind of have two parts to this. So we have two groups of students here. So we'll kind of do two transitions because we have a lot to showcase tonight. I'd first like to thank you for the opportunity to share the amazing work we are doing at Forest Park. I would also like to thank the students and staff members who are joining us tonight to highlight the workshop model and the book clubs that students are engaging in. As we work to make Forest Park a better place to learn, we want to ensure that students are engaging in diverse learning opportunities with their peers. This includes creating the pathway for students to craft and refine their writing and share multiple perspectives. Providing students with a broad range of literary experiences allows students to develop a more durable understanding and provide opportunities for students to apply what they know in new contexts. Thus, this is the heart of transfer learning. Now I'd like to introduce you to 8th grade literacy teacher, Mrs. Mitchell.
Hi. Hi there. My name is Meredith Mitchell, and I'm an 8th grade literacy teacher at Forest Park. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how we structure our literacy instruction at Forest Park. Every day, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders have a daily literacy block, which includes both reading and writing instruction. And across the year, that instruction is centered around units of study, or in other words, a focus on a particular genre of reading or a genre of writing. Our goal is to arm students with strategies to tackle the complexities of each genre. So we organize each day according to the graphic there off to the side. This is a poster from our classroom that shows how we organize our literacy instruction. First, we start with a mini lesson, which is about 10 minutes long. A teacher gathers the class together and actually demonstrates how to engage in some deeper reading or writing work, kind of lifts the veil on how proficient readers or writers get a task done within a genre. Then students make a plan about how they're going to use that strategy in their independent reading or in their independent writing project. Kids go off to work on their own. That's the bulk of the workshop time. And then teachers pull smaller groups of students to give targeted instruction to either accelerate reading or remediate maybe some gaps that might have been missed along the way. Towards the end of the workshop, students take time to go and share with a consistent partner or a small group of partners. They brag about what they accomplished that day and set goals moving forward. What are they going to do as readers and writers at home outside of school to continue that learning? If you could swap the slide there. When we zoom in on the writing instruction, this follows a cycle, and the cycle is up here on the board, again, from our classroom. Writing units are cyclical, so students begin by generating ideas about what they might want to write about, then they rehearse how that writing might go, they draft the piece all the way from beginning through the middle to the end, and then they engage in the hard work of revision, which is where they make any changes, deletions, additions to improve the work. And then they edit for punctuation, spelling, conventions, and they make that writing public to the class or to the community. Our goal is to bring students through multiple laps of the writing cycle in each unit so that they become independent and they are kind of building that ownership with each time through the writing cycle. As PLCs, we are really putting emphasis on the revision stage lately because we know that this really messy work is kind of the heart of improving writing. It requires students to take risks, but it really does take their writing to a new level. And in the end, when students publish and celebrate those final pieces together, we kind of commemorate all of the growth and accomplishments writers have made. So I have here today two writers, Madeline, a 7th grader, and Ravneet, an 8th grader. Ravneet is going to share with us her revision process for the most recent 8th grade writing unit, which was a memoir unit.
Hello, my name is Ravneet Kaur and I am part of Mrs. Mitchell's 8th grade literacy class, and today I'm going to be sharing my memoir editing process. When choosing my topic, I wanted to pick something that had a really big impact on my life, and growing up as a biracial child, identity is something that I still continue to figure out. So in my paper, I took motifs and identity. I took the motif identity and turned them into a question that my paper should answer. Who is Ravneet? And after writing my first draft, I felt that my memoir did not answer this question. The evidence did not have the impact that I hoped to convey. So when it came to editing, I spent a lot of time deleting, adding, rewording, and even rearranging parts of my paper to better convey my message. And after I finished my first round of edits, my views on my paper changed. Rather than using it as my final copy, I used it as a guide to rewrite an even better second draft. Using the same motif and similar text structure and evidence, I was able to answer my question better and really show how much identity impacted my life. And after going through the same editing process, deleting, adding, rearranging, and rewording things, on my second paper, the impact I had envisioned was finally conveyed in my work. And you can see this in my introduction. For my first draft, it was very vague and did not hold a lot of deep meaning, or gave the reader any insight as to what I would talk about. But in my second draft, you can see how I really stretch out the importance of how my ethnicities collide, causing a lot of confusion for me. I talk a lot about how my name and beliefs and cultural practices are more on my dad's side, however my appearance is more closer to my mom's side. And this is only a snapshot of how the editing process helped make my writing better. It added more depth and it made it more interesting. But for me as a writer, it helped me realize that you don't always have to stick with your first copy. And to make your writing better, it's okay to change your stories in drastic ways. Thank you.
Next we have Madeline. She's a 7th grader, and she is here to share with us her final published piece from her most recent realistic fiction unit.
Hi, I'm Madeline, and yeah, I'm going to share my realistic fiction piece. Control is something we all struggle with, whether it's lack of or too much control. Sometimes we can get so overwhelmed by responsibilities and choices and our work, we lose all control. We have to try our hardest to get it back. That's what my story is about. Now I'm going to share the closing of my realistic fiction story. As my teammates bring the ball down the field, I think about everything that had happened to get me here. My brother becoming sick was the biggest thing. I look on the sidelines and smile. There he is, cheering us on. I notice the 4 people next to my brother. My mom and dad, of course, but also Kelsey and Kendall, 2 of my best friends. Me and Audrey invited them to our game, and they accepted. In return, we're going to Kelsey's lacrosse game later. Everything had changed. In one way or another, each of us had taken control. Kelsey had taken control of her abilities. Kendall had taken control of herself, instead of being forced to be mean by Laura and the others. Audrey had taken control of her perspective, choosing to see them as pitiful girls who wanted attention instead of bullies. And I've taken control of my life. If something happens, I'm going to try and fix it instead of sitting around and waiting for it to be over. Don't even think our journey is done, though. We haven't even hit the midfield line. All we can do is dribble the ball down the field until we reach the goal.
All right. Thank you guys for sharing that. We're going to transition to show you a glimpse into what our book clubs look like. So that's kind of how the writing and revision process goes, and those are both original pieces that those students wrote. The other part of literacy is having students engage in book clubs. So we'll show you a glimpse into that, and Ms. Phillips and Ms. Stiglitz. Stiglitz. We both are 8th grade literacy teachers, and we are here to talk to you about our literary nonfiction book clubs that we combined our classes together to create this experience for our students. So we first wanted to start by talking to you a little bit about what our literary nonfiction unit is. And in this unit, kids read high engaging nonfiction books. And as they're reading these books across hundreds of pages, they think about central ideas, explicit and implicit. They study arguments and perspectives within there as well. And then they also participate in collaborative conversations, which is what we're here to highlight today.
Yeah, and typically within a unit or a unit that has a book club, teachers in the past have done where it's just the book club within their room. They just use the students in their room. So Ms. Stiglitz and I kind of paired our brains together and we combined our classes together. So we intermixed and we partnered students up that had similar kind of interest within what they want to study. And this was an opportunity for them to interact with their peers and the other classmates and to be able to collaborate together.
So instead of having our kids within a book club all read the same book, which was like a traditional book club, and an experience that a lot of our kids have throughout middle school, we decided that we were going to have our kids study and read books within a topic. And that could be like a variety of different things. And we actually got this idea from a professional development session that we attended through Teachers College. And the big takeaway that they had for us that day was that in order for kids to really understand and comprehend nonfiction text, they need to build a lot of background knowledge on that topic and read multiple books on that topic. And so that's where these combined book clubs under like this topic umbrella came into play. So we have lots of topics that the kids got to choose from: plagues and pandemics, war, survival, disasters, sports, animals, just to name a few. And then the kids were reading their own book, but all within that topic. And our books were at a variety of different reading levels. So no matter what level the kids were reading at, they had a text that they were able to read and comprehend and then participate in conversations with their peers.
And within book clubs, Ms. Stiglitz and I were able to assess on speaking and listening, which is one of the standards that we are to assess on. And this standard assesses a student's ability to participate in collaborative conversations by being prepared, posing thought-provoking questions, supporting their ideas with evidence, making connections between their texts, saying that it is within the same topic, umbrella topic, and even starting to engage in debate. Before our book clubs would meet each time that we would get together, what we would do is kind of tag team where Ms. Stiglitz or I would do a quick little mini lesson on a speaking and listening strategy. And then once we were done, we told them off you go, and they went into the hallway, which you can see within some of these pictures up here. And when they were in the hallways, they were very engaged within their conversations as far as pushing one another and working on each of those areas within the standard. And Ms. Stiglitz and I then would take each half and half of the groups, and we would go out there and we would give them formative feedback so that they know how they need to grow for the next time until we got to the summative.
So we brought one of our book clubs here to talk to you tonight and to share a little bit about their experience that they had participating in these collaborative book clubs.
Hi, my name is Bella.
My name is Sarah.
My name is Peyton.
My name is Hala.
My name is Liam.
And we are part of the Death Squad Book Club. We read books within the close to death or survival topic.
In our book club, we all read different books about the Titanic, plane crashes, survival in the desert, and hiking on glaciers. We met 2 times each week to share and express our ideas on the topic of survival. This was enough time to come up with new ideas to share.
During our meetings, we had a designated person who controlled the direction of the conversations we had. We made sure everyone talked and had the opportunity to share their thoughts.
Some of the things we discussed Some of the things we did to show our work was create power dots, a timeline, and discuss similarities and differences between our books. In your packet, there are examples of our work. The power dots were my favorite to work on together because they showed how we created a central idea and how all our books connect with one another.
My favorite part of book club was that everyone was included and contributed to the conversation.
I also liked the way, I also liked how we set up our book club meetings with a facilitator so that allowed us to contribute.
My favorite part was that we could each read our own books instead of the same book, but still under the same topic of survival. This allowed us to learn about the other texts and see each other's perspectives.
I liked how we had 15 minutes to discuss in our book clubs. This gave us plenty of time to go in depth about our ideas and create our power dots.
My favorite part was meeting with people in a different class and hearing their perspectives on the topic. It was nice to share our thinking with others instead of just keeping it to ourselves.
Overall, book clubs were really fun and beneficial and something we looked forward to each week.
And so, as you can see, not only did we, Ms. Stiglitz and I, enjoyed facilitating this kind of thing, a combined book club, but you can see even the students. I mean, we were just talking over here, we wish that we could have brought every single book club here, because truly, they really did lift the level of book club conversation than in the past when we just did our own class book clubs. And you heard some of the positives from the students, but other successes that Ms. Stiglitz and I noticed as teachers was that the level of conversation was lifted. High engagement. I mean, some of the other teachers that just did solo book clubs said they were noticing the engagement was starting to lower. Well, we noticed the engagement was lifting completely as each book club kept going. Positive peer pressure, and now what we're gonna start doing is we're gonna go into the next book club unit, which is dystopian, one of my favorites, and we're gonna try to do this kind of combined book club effort into each of the 8th grade classes. Oh, last thing. So we want to invite each of you at this table up here that we are going to be celebrating each of the book clubs. So if you saw, these guys really were, they lit up and everything. We are having all of the book clubs celebrate tomorrow during our classes, during 3rd and 4th hour, 6th and 7th hour, which we can definitely let you know more on that. But we invite each of you to be able to join. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll sit down after this, I promise. I just want to close it up by saying, part of Forest Park's mission is taking collective ownership for learning, and that involves really including all students' voices and giving students opportunities to take multiple perspectives and really mix in and learn from one another, and you can see how that was showcased today. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity to have our students be really brave and showcase their work and what they're learning on, as well as our teachers here supporting them along the way. So thank you for letting Forest Park be here tonight.
Mrs. Stiglitz, will your intern be there tomorrow? So I might.
No, she was with me today.
Is that your daughter?
My daughter is interning. Thank you. All right, let's move on to community comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Let's get a photo, with your whole team, Ms. Rosinski, if we could.
Sorry.
So if everybody would come up to the Franklin banner.
Oh, in front of us, or where do you want?
Oh, we'll do it right here.
No. No. Oh, there's. Should we be quiet? I don't know. Should we have what's going on? I don't know what's going on.
Come on in.
Welcome to my world.
Abby's in that class. They did a really nice job.
Very well planned out. Very well.
Good job. Good job, everybody. I don't feel like I can go to book club. I haven't read on the topic.
You guys, come on over to take a picture.
Yeah, get over here. Take your pictures. Wow, it's like paparazzi, you guys. This is exciting. Good job.
Thank you so much for coming. We have little gift bags too, so make sure you grab one
Oh, gift
before you head out. All right. See if I can live out in that. There you are. Thank you.
The whole song you did.
Yeah, and seriously, thanks so much. Yes.
I know you don't. Maybe you might like it.
It could happen.
Could happen.
Thank you.
Alan.
All right, thank you, everyone. So for community comment, I don't think anybody signed up, but does anybody want to participate in community comment today? No community comment. We'll move on to the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. School board calendar, there's a regular Board of Education meeting both January 11th and January 25th at 2023 at the ECC at 6 o'clock both nights. District Administrator update. Mrs. Bennett, please.
All right. Well, it's hard to follow the group from Forest Park. They did an outstanding job. I thought it was also a really nice follow-up to Countrydale, who spoke a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago. And they also went through second graders sharing their units of study writing process. So it was kind of neat to see how that develops through our middle school. So thank you to all of them for being here this evening. Some things ahead to look forward to in December in Franklin is the Arts in Action, I like to say. So we have our middle school drama production of Happily Ever Before taking place this Friday at the Sabre Center. Next week, we have a variety of concert opportunities presented by our high school. So on Monday, the orchestra. On Tuesday, the band performs, and on Thursday, the choir. And the following week, right up before our winter break, we have Forest Park Middle School Orchestra concert on that Wednesday. So if you're looking to get your music tuned up and enjoy our productions, we have plenty going on in the month ahead. So busing updates, we did have a meeting with our bus provider this week. We're feeling optimistic moving forward with some different leadership changes and more of a process system look to what they're doing in hopes that we can run a little more efficiently and have more drivers. I would like to thank Mr. Sprague. He's been on a route for a month now, and that's been a tremendous help to our community. We continue to have all AM routes covered. That is with adding a little bit larger population on some of our buses, so we are still hoping to add a driver or two in that area just to lower those numbers. PM, we are still running a few routes short. We will have a new driver starting on Monday, and we're working on communicating out those changes to our families as soon as possible. First Student also informed us that they have 8 drivers completing their training. Unfortunately, they also lose 6 around the same time to FMLA, so we're not sure what the impact will be on our routes, but we continue to be in touch with them in hopes that some of them are added in our area. A little bit of excitement for tonight. I think that we have a really great meeting ahead of us. Our team, specifically the teaching and learning team under the direction of Dr. Moe, has been working really hard at not only looking at our continuous improvement cycle for our curricular resources and how that meets our tactics and our coherence plan, specifically in how we look at developing our high-performing classrooms, how we grow our data literacy, and building our capacity around our teams. But we're also looking at that engagement in our learners and parents. So Mr. Blessington's going to talk to us a bit about that cycle tonight with his team. And then in addition, Dr. Moe and all of our administrators that are here with us tonight, thank you, are going to talk about our mid-year update on our coherence plan, what those tactics look like in action, and a report out from each school on their school improvement teams, and then again, what those pieces look like as we carry forward. As we've seen over the last month, we've had the release from DPI and our state report card. So that will be one piece of data that we'll talk about tonight. We continue to exceed expectations, which we're very proud of, but we always know there's room to grow and room to learn, and some of those continuous improvement efforts are what we'll focus on this evening. So I thank everybody for being here tonight, and I'm excited for what we're going to talk about ahead of us.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move forward with the coherence plan and annual assessment update. Dr. Moe, please.
Thank you very much. Just to go through your red folder, that is the same big fat document that I emailed last week. So if you have another printed copy, but if you want a nice color copy to refer to, there's nothing new in there, just so you're aware as we go through. So thank you for having me. I just want to review the 5 areas that we'll be going through. I think I said this to a couple of you when you came in, as if you remember, these reports used to be 2 big standalone reports. So we used to have the coherence plan report and the big December assessment update. This year they're merging to 1 report where the data was all added at the end, kind of like an appendix, knowing that all those pieces of data are what feed the metrics document, the red, yellow, green. Please be thinking as you go through that data. Next year, we want to streamline it further, what data you really want to see in there and what data you would rather follow up with your liaison or with me in a separate conversation. So if you could just keep that in mind when we're going through. I'm not going to touch on each piece of data in that appendix of sorts, but we do want to streamline it 1 more step next year. So if you could just think about that. So our 5 priority areas have not changed. We're going to give you an update in each one. We have new data to report in nearly all of them in terms of the metrics document. And we have new steps that we are taking from the district level in all of them. So there'll be new information in each. Our first section is student achievement and growth. If you remember kind of I guess the system that we've made up moving forward here is anything highlighted in gold in that second column means it's new for this report. So you can see the bottom or middle there has been updated because we had new data since the last time we talked in June. So forward in ELA and math went up slightly, but not enough to move us in a category. ELA at 11th grade went up. So if you can see on there, we added a note that for the high school metric, we used to track ACT and Aspire. The Aspire test is going away. So that metric I added in parentheses, we're tracking 11th grade ACT only. So that's one change. We'll no longer, we used to merge those 2 points into a common data point. To be perfectly honest, it's quite frankly, it's cleaner just to track it as one with ACT, and we no longer will have Aspire. So that's one metric that has changed. That's including ACT only. Dropped a little bit in math ACT and dropped a little bit in college and career readiness. So you can see those bottom ones. We'll talk about that as we move forward in the presentation, but that's kind of the rough guesstimate. Our commitment when we started this coherence plan was we'd make growth in all of these areas. So we've made growth in some and lost growth in some. So keep working at it. We'll talk about what we're doing. District action since we last talked. So I know that many of you have asked me about the group of staff members that we used to refer to as systems specialists. You'll notice that we're not using that term anymore. We've kind of rebranded what those individuals do in a much tighter coaching model. So they are now instructional coaches, and we've moved them to be building-based. So it used to be that they all worked in buildings, but now they are assigned to specific buildings. That allows them to work alongside the principal. It allows them to participate in their school improvement teams. It allows them to push into teacher team meetings. We think it's a much better model to support our teachers and be responsive. I give them all the kudos in the world, right? That's a hard thing to change your whole format of support to start a school year, and to a person, they've all done wonderfully. So we're very pleased with how that's gone. We're looking at rebooting SIP, which is School Improvement Plan, and SIT, which is School Improvement Team. I know I copied you in my response to Mrs. Witkowski. She was wondering what are some of the things that Mr. Blessington and Ms. Cody would look for when they join these meetings. We are looking specifically at how SIT teams work through the process of continuous improvement. So are they setting up their data literacy protocols to make sure they understand the data and can take action steps? Are they holding each other accountable for balancing who does that work, or is it just the principal or just one lead teacher doing all of it. So we've gotten kind of down and dirty into the details of how does a team work. It's kind of an offshoot. So high-performing teams would be an umbrella that describes any team. When we talk specifically about school improvement teams, they need to be experts in continuous improvement and how you, I don't want to overkill this analogy, but I do like it, how you keep that gear turning. So how do you get that group of people to make change, and for certain groups of kids, make change in a much faster way? You'll see, I'll talk later, we totally kind of redid our professional development choices, rebranded that as Gear Up and gave teachers some choice. I'll talk about that later in the presentation. We've been focusing a lot on high-performing classrooms and universal design. And we've been spending lots of time on curriculum work, which I know is also a question that many of you have had, not just with this presentation, but previously. Mr. Blessington will talk more about that, but we're in our third meeting of 4 coming up next week with a representative from CISA 1 that is going through what's called prioritizing standards. So the standards for English language arts in the state is a even bigger, fatter piece that I gave you, right? All this thing. How do you go through and work vertically to figure out what we would call would be guaranteed and viable for all kids? So we can't teach kids all of those standards to the same depth. It's impossible. So how do we take what we know about our kids and what do we know about best practice and prioritize some of them to hit really deep? So we're going through that work. Here is our instructional coaches and the buildings that they are assigned to. If one of those individuals is someone you'd like to join your liaison meetings with principals, certainly ask. I know I talked to Mr. Blessington this morning and just noticing a difference in our school improvement team to have that expertise at the table and kind of connecting all the dots with having coaches be part of that, we're really excited about. If you've never met these individuals, please speak to your principal, your liaison principal, and that's something that we can facilitate for you. If you want some insight on the work that they're doing, we're more than happy to do that.
I just noticed that some names are under multiple schools.
So our coaches that support special education are splitting schools. So they might spend 2 days at one school, 2 days at another school, but it is a set schedule.
Okay.
How large are the teams in any school?
The school improvement teams, I would say they average around 10 people. The high school and middle school much larger than that, and some of our smaller elementary schools smaller. The idea would be you have a person on that team that represents all groups of people. So maybe one representative from each grade level, a representative from special education student services, so that would be psych, social work, speech and language, OT, PT, usually an encore representative, so art, music, gym, those types of things. So it would be if you want to take the work of that team and spread it out to the teachers, kind of having a representative, if you think of a traditional hierarchy, from each of those teams.
I'm just thinking there's 3 at Southwood Glen, so 3 out of 10 are coaches, or 3 out of 13 are coaches? 3 out of 15.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear 3 out of 15?
3 out of 15? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there collaboration between coaches from different schools to kind of, set up a plan of, okay, because especially reading and comprehension starts from elementary, to middle school to high school. We can't expect high school to do a massive change in the score level of reading if the elementary hasn't started the work at elementary itself. So is there collaboration, and do they have monthly meetings, or how do they go about?
I'll let Mr. Blessington and Ms. Cody add if I'm missing something, but right now all coaches meet together bi-weekly under the direction of Ms. Cody and Mr. Blessington. So that this whole group that you see, plus Ms. Sundstrom joins that meeting, and myself, so plus some district type people. I would say, if I'm thinking about Shauna, Mrs. LaPlante is sitting first here. I know she meets with her 2 coaches that work at Countrydale regularly, so collaborate in a smaller mini team that supports Countrydale. I don't know if either one of you want to speak more.
Yeah, I would just add that while they're building based, there's still we want to make sure there's connection to district goals. So they're not, each individual site isn't doing their own thing. They're very connected, and they have a chance to collaborate and come together, not just bi-weekly, but at different times, you know, throughout the week as they're planning for different things and connecting. And really, they lean on each other's expertise to help advance the work.
Well, one of my question is, if, for example, if a student A, if you have noticed that he's lagging behind, for example, in reading, you know, and with the collaboration of the team, you know, are we able to individually, because one of the goals of closing gaps is that we want to lift up the bottom, you know, up two, at the same time increase the top two, you know, so it's a kind of nice equilibrium which we want to achieve both, you know. So are we able to individualize, because there will be students which will need more attention as compared to this. Some students are, you know, talented as compared to others. So are we able to, are this instruction coaches able to pass on this information? Hey, the student A was in 3rd grade, you know, and to the teachers subsequently, so that flow of information is going on from coaches to the teachers to from grade to grade, you know, just for example, if you take one student.
It's a really good question, and that's another reason we wanted the coaches to be spending, we're hoping 80% of their times with teachers and kids. That's kind of my goal. In the previous, they were not joining what we call MLSS meetings, which stands for Multi-Level System of Support. So to your example, if there was a student that was lagging behind, there would be a team of people that made a plan and an intervention for him or her student to work through. Now, the coaches are a part of those meetings. That's our next big iteration of work. I would say coaches guiding and supporting that intervention team, and also backing up, we align those standards, right? The next big piece is how do we get grading and feedback and assessments to support progress towards those standards. So 2 big chunks that we have to push through until we kind of know what we're going to guarantee for all kids, right? Because we can't teach every single standard to the depth. That's going to know if you have a student lagging behind, what is the most important thing to get everybody on the same page for that student, whether it's a student learning English or a student who receives special education services, or just a student who might be taking a little bit longer to learn compound words, right? Something simple. We have to have kind of that North Star. And if I'm being totally honest, I think getting all those systems to work together is something we needed to improve in. And we're there now, trying to turn that gear. I don't know if that answers, but yes, there is a team of people that meet.
Thank you.
Another thing that we're working on, this concept of universal design. So you might have heard it coming out of the architecture world. So this is an architecture example. You may have heard it, it's been in the news recently about people who raise money like for universally accessible playgrounds, if you've heard about that. So playgrounds like at a school that a child with a wheelchair can get into a swing. You might have heard so if we think about that in a classroom setting, you can see on this picture here whether students are able to use steps or not, right? They can access this together. The analogy that we might use is you think about an old country rural church. If you think about the church I would take my grandma to, they've always retrofitted a side door for the people with walkers or wheelchairs, right? Those old steps they weren't able to make so people can use the front door. They've always retrofitted. So the idea from this graphic would be, instead of retrofitting, how do we make sure, and Mrs. Wachowski, you mentioned this in your comments to me, that kids can access grade level content on the first time through. They don't have to go down the hall and get something separate, or they don't have to go always to a small group for extra help. If we do better letting everybody in the front door the first time through, we don't have to retrofit the back door. So that's kind of the bigger picture analogies. You'll just constantly be spinning. We will not intervene our way out of gaps. We won't raise that bottom line up unless we're more efficient the first time through. So principals have spent time with teachers in their buildings working on that every professional development day. How do you just rethink our efficiency and how we approach? So that's work we've started this year.
So, Dr. Moore, do students who are lagging behind, do they get extra for example, assignment, hey, kind of your essay was slightly weak, or your, comprehension and extra was weak, let's give you some extra work to kind of improve at the same time, able to kind of, take the student going on with the class flow, but at the same time providing this, extra, I'm not saying homework, but extra assignments as such. Is that done?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I mean, this goes, what Dr. Mo was really getting at is when we think about like the universal access, we are thinking about different strategies that we can use that lots of different students could benefit from. So it might not be an extra assignment, it might just be, a different approach that that student could benefit from, as well as other students. So, so that's, I mean, you heard a little bit about like personalizing things for students who are working in different groups or different book levels, or again, different areas of being a reader. Like they might spend a little more time on comprehension versus maybe phonics or something. So it's not an extra assignment, but there's definitely planning and thought that goes into working with students who need different things.
They still, basically, is this individualized approach to that student given? That's my question.
Can you repeat that?
Individualized approach to the student who's lagging behind.
Yes.
And are the parents communicated that, hey, kind of, we are trying to kind of, work with your child, so and so, because one of the things which I believe is that parents' involvement, because the teachers are there, at the school, but parents' involvement is crucial, and I know that different households have different, settings, but are the parents usually informed and involved in this kind of, especially if you're thinking of closing gaps, the kids who are kind of lagging behind, if we involve the parents in the decision making at, hey, we need your support, we need your help, in achieving this, closing these gaps, improving the kids, are they emailed, are the students?
So if students are in, in an intervention, like Dr. Mo talked about that, those meetings, those team meetings, then a parent is part of that process. And then I'd say any classroom teacher working with a student, if they were working on different things, they should be communicating with parents as far as how things are going and how they can support at home. So.
I would say that I've seen a lot more communication in the last year or 2 years about what my child is, what's going to be happening in the unit coming up, and in the weeks ahead, more than I had seen in the past. And maybe that's because they're getting in higher grade levels, but I suspect it's planful from the district side.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to closing gaps, and it was like I planted you in the board audience, Dr. Khan. So remember last time we met, these were all in the green, and I had to explain to you that that was a false green, that we closed our gaps by bringing the top line down, which does not really count. That you can't close the gap by the all students group doing less bad than the bottom line. So that's no longer what we see. But you can see over last year, any of these things in the red on here, these metrics mean that the gap grew, which is not what we want to see. So you could describe that in real terms by saying our all students group kind of corrected their downward, but our bottom line didn't correct at a faster rate for the gap to close, if you're thinking about those two lines. So students with IEPs, students who receive free and reduced lunch, and students learning English, the gap grew. So we have some work to do there. Those two big reboots we were talking about with the coaches of making sure that they're informing those teams, that multi-level system of support, and really looking at our grading and feedback practices and what standards are we working towards, doing some supplements to our curriculum have to happen for those kids. I don't have anything else to say other than that cannot continue to stay in the red, just as a moral obligation. We did see some improvement. So I know some of you mentioned the work that the high school did with their focus on students with IEPs, and we did see a closure of the gap. So anything in yellow or green means the gap is closing in the good way. not the kind of fake way we had last year. So closing in the good way, we've moved to that. We had some closure in work-based learning experiences for students with IEPs, which is what we worked hard at. So we're glad to see that that showed up in the student outcome data.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Or
ma'am.
do you want us to hold them?
That is up to you.
Okay, I'm going to ask it now.
Okay.
Going back to the previous slide. So it sounds like one of your main tactics that you're going to deploy to try and address this problem is by changing the structure around coaching and data literacy to try and have more nimble teams to address student needs. Is
Yes.
that accurate? Okay.
Said very well.
Thank you. When would you hope that this change starts to show fruit?
2 years ago, right? Like I would hope the change showed
So
right
then,
away.
if
I
you're
would
telling me
say
that, then I'm saying it's not working.
no. So this change, those two changes are new, right? This year. So, right, what I see, I to be totally frank with you, I'm not sure there's ever any excuse for gaps, if I'm really being honest. I would say we're probably 2 years out, right? If you think about by the end of this coherence plan, what we've done this year, we should start to see some results. We talked about the difference of student outcome data is the last to show the results. So what are we doing in the meantime to decide is this working or not working? So I check in with Mr. Blessington and Miss Cody, like how is the coaching going? Do we see more participation at SIT team meetings? Is there equal voice? When Southwood Glen worked on interviewing, getting data from students and then changing around how they teach certain parts of the unit of study. Are they seeing just on that small little day-to-day assessment for kids improvement? If not, we need to stop doing those things far before we wait a year or 2 years or 3 years for the student outcome data. So my hunch would be we waited too long to make changes, right? Some of those things that maybe we knew, hard to tease out. What was COVID, what wasn't COVID, there was all these other factors that got mixed in that stew that made it hard to tease out. I think we're past that and outside of that and can kind of, at least I can see more clearly the work that needs to be done. I can't speak, but in listening to principals and their teams talk, I feel like teachers and teams are there too. I think that's a fair assessment to be able to see a little bit more clearly on what needs to happen.
It's kind of tricky because it sounds like objectively it's this that we're going to be seeing, and so these sort of intermediate steps are much more subjective.
They are.
And so we just have to trust you.
Qualitative versus quantitative, correct.
Okay.
Kind of think of it as a go slow to get there fast, right? There's quick changes you could make that would maybe get you a little bit of growth but not sustain and not change a system enough to continue to grow. And we're making changes that are impactful on students and time. But right now we have to get our staff ready for that, like switching coaches who were hired on in one type of position and very much making it look different is going to take, a year just to really build that language, like the language and the purpose behind it. If we don't build that why and we don't work on defining that clearly, it's going to be harder to reach the students. So like when we look at student impact and numbers, that's what takes a little bit of time because we're shifting and it's a big boat. So like you think about turning a ship, it takes a little bit of time. And that's where things are at right now.
I think it's just important to acknowledge that and sort of verbalize this as when we can expect to see a change and then hold ourselves to it. So
absolutely.
I have a question also because we have 5 grade schools and there's it's not a lot of kids in each building, and you're trying to make a change. If something like really works in one building, does it ever get shared with other buildings? Can you spread that success? This sounds like you're kind of in isolation. How do you get the success spreading through the whole system if you got 5 buildings working?
I would disagree that we're in isolation. I think there's some things that look slightly different at every building, right? It's a non-negotiable that you have to have a SIT team, that a coach or a school improvement team that's representative of your school community, that coaches join, that the principal runs, that there's all those things. But if you go into each school improvement team meeting, it looks different, but everybody is aligned under the coherence plan. So I would not say that things are remarkably different building to building. I wouldn't say that those are happening in isolation. I would disagree with that. I would think some buildings look slightly different, but there's not huge differences elementary to elementary on what a kid in Franklin would experience, I would not say.
I guess that wasn't really my point. My point was that we're trying to find a solution. We're trying to find something, something that works, because what we're doing now is getting us this, so we're making changes And if we find a change that really is impactful, how does that get shared across?
We do meet as a principal leadership team twice a month. And one of the questions we always do is sharing out on different things like that. So for instance, our last topic that we shared on is we'll be talking about professional development where teachers make choices for where they go. How are you bringing that back to the group to make sure if you went to the English language learner session and you went to planning for gifted learners, how am I sure that something changed in each of your classrooms and was shared with the rest of your team? So principals came up with a big list of ideas. They all contributed. Everybody has to pick 2 ideas off that list. Just to use an example, like, okay, in the next month, we're all committing to getting this work done from something. So I would say choice within guardrails and just looking at data. So it's not shared here, but I look at data building to building all the time, right? And I meet with every principal every 2 weeks. Mr. Blessington and Ms. Cody meet with principals. Annalee meets with principals. So that's something I'll think about, right? If it feels like it's isolated, I don't think we're probably communicating it in the best way. You know, if that's how it's coming off, then likely we have to think about how we communicate and structure that, because I don't think coming off that way is accurate in all cases, but I'll think about that.
I would say that one of the things that I've heard in the last year or a little less, since there's a lot of new administration, is that a lot of the people sitting in this room have different experiences and different perspectives to give each other, and I think that's really important for a district like ours to bring those perspectives together and learn from each other. And I think I see the principals, or at least I hear about the principals doing that quite a bit, and I think that's important as we move forward.
So talking about closing gaps, some chunks of work that we're doing is, so from a technical aspect, we've revamped and updated our scheduling timeline. So Mr. Blessington's led that work. We're trying to get 6 to 12 scheduling aligned. We do have some teachers that share buildings. So how does that happen much sooner so that we're able to look at the number of students in each class, staff classes, get students with IEPs supported, get all those pieces in place? You can only get those dominoes to start back further if you push back the whole process, which is what we did. Hopefully that gets all the structural pieces in place, because the real work is how are you going to support the kids that need extra support. So how do you push those structural pieces back so they're done and ready to go and allow you to get down to business and spend your time on work that matters a little bit more. The other thing we're talking about is data literacy, revisions to our MLSS system. Ms. Cody spoke to you last month, the weeks are running together, talking about the transition improvement grant, so raising graduation outcomes for students with IEPs. And we also have had multiple students now that have passed their GED at the House of Correction. So those, when you talk about quick change versus long-term change, kids getting their GED is something that we could put in place and see a quick outcome right away. Changing that trajectory for a kid in, 90 minutes to take the test? So some data points are fast like that. This would be an example. We talk about this data literacy or data protocol. You've all asked good questions about what happens in a SIT team meeting. So we've spent some time in school improvement teams agreeing on, under the principal's leadership with everybody on that team, what is the data you're going to look at daily, weekly, monthly, trimesterly? We have more data than any humans ever need, but were we really using it to make a difference? Likely some of our data doesn't need to be tracked anymore. If I'm being honest, if we're not using it to change what we do for kids, we don't need to keep it. What student outcome data will they look at? What educator practice data will you look at? So we're great at student outcome data. We love to judge and rank kids in this business. We're far less adept at tracking teacher outcome data. So we have educator effectiveness, but could you really walk in a classroom and give teachers that next nudge to change practice? How do we know how teachers are doing? There's that feels like quotient. Ask any teacher in the building, who's the best teacher in this building? They'll all likely pick the same 1 or 2 people. But can we quantify that? Can we spread that? Can we repeat that? As a system, education is not very good at that. How is this going to guide the PLC or grade level teamwork? And we'll be talking about the next slide. How does this inform something new that we've added called the EDIS data story? So EDIS is like our student data system, not PowerSchool, that's student information system, but EDIS keeps all our student data and makes pretty charts and graphs and makes it accessible. I cannot say enough good things about Mark Grunsky, who is our new data person. So he took a look at EDIS and said, you're really underutilizing what can be done in here. So when we talk about data stories, what that would mean is for each building, their school improvement goals are put into EDIS. And I forget who I picked. I think this might be Robin Woods. Janine, look familiar? Say yes or no. I can't even read that far. But this would be an example of a data story. So when any teacher from Robinwood logs in, it has Robinwood School Improvement Plan goals pre-programmed into the data story. It will then take the goals and filter over your data. So if any teacher can go in and see, how am I progressing towards the school improvement goals today? And that system's constantly sucking up data, and the magic filter takes it and pushes it through the school improvement plan goals. That's something we never had before. Teachers were given their data. It's empowering. It allows teachers to pivot quicker. So all of that data is now accessible to them. That was new, and it's all accessible through the lens of their school improvement plan goals, which are all in the same categories, but slightly different for each school. So it's pre-programmed in that way. So I hope that answers, I think you had what is a data story?
I'm hearing you say that a teacher can have that same data for their classroom.
That's correct.
And it can kind of say, well, which students I need to focus on. Right?
That's correct.
Because underneath all that data is always a student.
It is. I cut that part off, but they would see actual students in this dashboard, yes.
And they could also, like, what skill they need to focus on. It's just that powerful. They could, they missed on this, or they need this.
For K-8 maps, yes, you can see it that deep. For the high school, we're using something called NICU, which is an online version of maps for a pre-ACT. So every kid took a practice ACT, a pre-ACT online. It took reports and it went through, here's the standards in math you need to work on. Here's the standards in ELA you need to work on. It gets pushed out to the teachers and they can more quickly know. Doesn't mean they're going to teach what you need in ACT math every second of every day, but if they have 20 kids in the class and 12 of them need numbers and operations, which is more like MAP, they can know that and automatically tailor right away maybe what the example problem they do is, or maybe between two different types of homework, which one they assign. It allows that day to day. True.
It's the first year we have it.
It's not the first year we have EDIS, but it's the first year we've used this capability in EDIS.
Sounds very transformational almost.
I'm hoping so, right? I'm pretty excited about it. We just rolled it out to teachers, so it's still pretty new.
How much extra work does it take to get all this data into this EDIS form?
For me or for my very best friend, Mark?
For the district. Is this something a teacher spends an hour at the end of the day entering?
Teachers don't do it, so it gets done at the district level and gets pushed out. In a perfect world, EDIS would talk to MAP and they would change data without any human intervention. It doesn't always go that route. So Mark Grunsky and Sue McCutcheon is the other individual. Sometimes you have to pull it from PowerSchool and upload it, but they can do the whole district in one upload, if that makes sense. So I'm going to take everybody's forward scores, put it into EDIS, and sort through to get everybody in the right spot. So teachers can only see their own students. So
basically what you're saying, we're getting a tremendous amount of data without a lot of work to get it there.
not for no work for teachers. A considerable amount of work for Mark, but that's his position and he's very good at it.
I guess my other question would be, I would be interested to know if teachers actually are using this, not in a punitive way, but if it's really as helpful as we hope it'll be. So are you able to sort of track that? And I would hope you're not tracking, did Mrs. So-and-so log in, but can you sort of see trends about if it's what we hope that it'll be? Somebody's raising their hand on it. Oh.
something I can log in maybe once a week and teaching multiple grade levels being encore. Maybe I don't connect with reading or math teaching specifically. So I might not see direct correlations, but then when I can see that, I can see my target 25, look at those students. It's really a difference maker, and especially seeing them throughout grade levels. I think this year it is a big change in something that I'm excited about to see my actual group of students, and it's really easy.
Okay, thanks.
Is it a tool that we can use for more than MAP scores or forward scores, or what else can go?
Attendance, could attendance?
Everything's in there. Grades, anything that has a metric can be pushed in there.
Thank you.
Correct. So we have attendance. The newest thing that we've put in there this year is class grades. That didn't used to be in there. So we took all the grades out of Power School and pushed them into EDIS, which means if you're meeting in one of those teams you referred to, you could get a kid's literacy profile. What have MAP scores been? What have forward scores been? What has attendance been? What has grades in classes been? You can click on that kid and pull that up.
It almost sounds too good to be true.
Don't say that yet, too soon, it's too new. So next category, we have employee engagement. And you'll see here, we had no new updates to the metrics, but there was something that I purposely left out of the report so I could call your attention to here and explain through it. So in reviewing the data for this year, the data that we had handed to us in previous years did not match the way we want to or have calculated it. So we need to make a correction for last year's data. We had an employee or a staff retention rate at 90.1. If we're consistently calculating for educators only and using October to October to capture new staff, that really should be 85.4. So I'm going to go back and make a correction. I just didn't want to look like I was being sneaky on the metrics document and doing that. So my guess is, in talking to Ms. Landcourt, is they perhaps used a June to June. So if you're using the year June to June or April to April, whatever you pick, you're missing people that may come and go, and those numbers could change. But if we want to track progress, we need to be calculating the exact same way, and that's not how it was calculated. So we will be backing that up and changing it to yellow, right? So we are at 85.44 for last year, would have been green. But our new data for this year is 81.27, which puts us back into the yellow. So I did not want to change that and just throw it in a report. I just wanted to pull it out. That's why the little arrow changed it on the metrics document. And then we should have apples to apples clean data moving forward. So I know we talked about that a little bit, Ms. Landcourt. I keep saying last month, but it could have been 2 months ago, like when everybody went, whenever that was. So nothing is new from there, except for whatever reason, what we reported last year was not correct. It should be lower than that.
Well, it still was 12 months though, right? June to June. It just was a different.
Correct.
Yeah, and we specifically looked at October to October because I just feel like it's a more stable time of year for our staffing. So if we did June to June, I just don't feel like it's necessarily accurate because we do still have teachers that resign over the summer. So I'm really looking at like a school year picture to school year picture, like fall to fall. What is our staff retention of like those who started in the fall and those who returned in the fall? So I just felt that October to October was a more accurate picture for us.
No questions? And it's nothing, I just wanted to make sure to pull that, so I'll be updating the document. It does not change what we have been doing, right? It doesn't change our district actions. We're going to talk in depth about this Gear Up professional development model. We've been much more intentional about exit interviews offered to every employee who leaves, and then stay interviews will eventually be offered to every employee who's here. So that's part of our professional development days and one-to-one. You also saw an example of a recognition card. I put one in your red folder, so that's exactly like the cards that we are using here. Schools have their school mascots on them, and then we have district cards, so that's been an intentional thing. This is an example of our Gear Up choices. So I took this from our working document today, building the choices for January. So this might be how the administrative leadership team at the district level, principals and coaches take feedback from teachers and take needs they see in their buildings and build sessions that teachers pick from. So every professional development day, teachers pick from 2 different color areas. And by the end of the year, they need to have picked at least 1 from each color area. So you can't pick all greens every session all year long, but you'll likely do some colors more than once depending on your subject area. It's been very well received. The data has been very good. We rate everything on a 5-point scale, and we've been between a 4.3 and a 4.7 on every session, give or take some sessions. We've allowed open comments on those surveys, which teachers have been asking for. We've had about 2/3, so my target number is always 315 for responses. In October, we had 283 out of 315 respond, which is quite a bit. And we had 261, I think, for November. I just closed it. So people wanting to give feedback, it's a good place to be. The turnaround time has been a challenge, right? We used to kind of plan a professional development calendar all year long. This one we plan between each, so that year turns really fast, but I think we've gotten efficient at it. The other example that you might see, I know you get copies of Franklin Find, besides the recognition cards, we've had trying to really be intentional for recognizing staff, and especially staff who might be behind the scenes. So for instance, one of the individuals here is a second shift custodian. That might not be somebody that everybody throughout the district interacts with, but he was a gentleman that took on an open assignment, right, went above and beyond, and so behind the scenes, that school gear doesn't turn without him being willing to kind of throw in extra effort on his part. So anybody who can be recognized, but we were really intentional the first 3 months, like several of our bus drivers were on there and people who maybe don't always feel recognized behind the scenes as much as you try. So we do 2 individuals each Franklin Find, so that's twice a month, 4 people a month.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
At other organizations, for example, at my place where I work, you get this kudos, kind of pin, something like that, where it basically, it's like in military and army, if you serve, you get
Oh,
badge
sure.
number, right? So people kind of, put the pins, and then basically, then the maximum number of pins you have, that means basically the more you're recognized, something like that. So it's I don't know how much it costs, something like that, but something like that where people can show, and then also it kind of promotes others, also kind of, encourages that, hey, it's basically in a healthy kind of,
Healthy public pressure, yes.
It's like Disney World.
You know what I've noticed? A lot of people with the cards hang them up by their desks. So the cards that, it's kind of funny that teachers are like big kids in a good way. So, like when a kid gets something, if you walk around in classrooms and even at the district office, like I know I hung mine up, like it's by my computer. So you realize, to your point, how much people need a pin or need a card or need more. It seems kind of silly, but I don't think it is silly, especially now. So we've gotten good feedback on that. Not that's going to fix the teacher retention woes, but even for these individuals, feeling that they're seen and appreciated is the right work to do. Family and community engagement. No new metrics to report there. That survey will come out again in spring. So we're looking at late May, early June. Some work that we're continuing to do there is the Key Communicators Group, which I know you're all familiar with. Profile of a graduate work and being intentional with those professional development sessions, bringing our community members in. So grabbed a couple pictures from Key Communicators. Very well received, very well planned. I think we would consider that a success. Here you'll see a word cloud of profile of a graduate. So last spring when we gave that family engagement survey, we asked family members or guardians who responded to either volunteer to be in our parent stakeholder group or share a trait, disposition, important value that they would want to make sure that we're focusing on for all students who graduate Franklin Public Schools. And this is what it kind of came to be. So we have our working list. You've seen profiles of a graduate in other districts. What are we saying that besides that guaranteed curriculum, what are the guaranteed dispositions that we're all going to make sure that if you graduate from Franklin, you're going to have? So that was work I know that was talked about many years ago. We're seeing it through, should be finished in June. High school is going to be meeting with students during advisory. We're going to be meeting with staff members in January and also doing a parent group in March and getting some more feedback. Pick, I would say, the 5 to 7 qualities that we're most committed to and be able to roll that out to start next school year. So kind of then give it to Chad, my other best friend Chad, who will take all that mess and make it look nice. That will be part of his summer.
Summer project.
Yes, a summer project for Chad, but he is masterful at taking what we come up with and making it marketable. So that will be part of that ongoing work. Here you'll see some pictures of when we talk about FPS partnerships. That yellow column, if you think back to that planning document for professional development, is always family and community engagement. So we have had community partners every single time. That first slide there, or picture there, you'll see that was our business group. Mr. Sprague was there, so we had HR individuals from around Franklin in to talk to teachers who signed up about work dispositions, ask questions. We have, that's Shalia in the second picture. She's from Advocate Aurora, our employee assistance program, so she's offering 3 sessions. She did a resilience session last time. She's doing, I think it's called From Stress to Strength next time. Franklin Fire Department has done hands-only CPR and Stop the Bleed, so teachers can choose that certification as one of their 2 slots that they sign up for. And then the last one is there was our nursing staff and area nurses did a holiday wellness, so they did blood pressure readings. Again, they're not spending 8 hours of a PD day, but just 1-hour chunks. We've had yoga from the rec department. Trying to think what else. We have Franklin Public Library coming in January, so they're doing a session, so trying hard that teachers feel more connected to that. Fiscal stewardship, so we have not done ratings. This is the first time we have done ratings. The metrics haven't changed, but you'll see we have 2 measures in green and 1 in yellow. We have not rated on this before, so these ratings are new. Some things that we're doing from the fiscal side of things, direct contracting for some of our health services. You're well aware of working through our transportation RFP. I know Mr. Cromie is working hard to transition a lot of the budget pieces to more of a local control model. Personnel discussions, defeasance, and doing some vendor audits with phone and internet service. So fiscal stewardship is an ongoing process. I'm sure Mr. Cromie could answer specific questions, but that is an often, right, we maybe don't talk about that with our teachers day to day in the coherence plan, but that is a giant gear that behind the scenes makes sure we get the right outcomes for kids.
I would just add the yellow metric is simply our budget is using $800,000 of ESSER to balance itself this year. Right, so we are not providing a budget that is balanced in and of itself because that $800,000 of ESSER money goes away. So making sure that we can get there is a key component of being healthy in the long run and returning to the green.
All right, so these lovely individuals in the audience are here to share with you. You had in your packet all of their school improvement plan goals, so they're not going to go through that, but they have some talking points about the work that they've done. I'll invite you to ask them questions at the end, but for specific questions, we're going to try to use that liaison protocol, just because most of them have probably been here since 6 a.m. too. So, but feel free to ask questions when they're done. I don't know if you guys have an order. You want to start high school and work backwards, or alphabetical elementary and work forwards?
Height? You can go by height.
All right, Steph, then we're doing alphabetical elementary. Ben Franklin is up.
Thanks for that. It's all good. All right.
So you've had a chance, hopefully, to kind of take a peek at our school improvement plan. But we were asked to kind of share like what's that overall impact we want to have across the year, and then what's the one thing we found super successful so far, and one thing we're looking forward to continuing to grow in this year. So at Ben Franklin, we spent some time at the beginning of the year coming up with our causes, or like the reasons why we do the work that we do. And we came up with a cause for both students and for staff. So our student cause is that Ben Franklin is committed to creating a school community where every student has access to an education that prepares them for their future, inspires them as learners, makes them feel safe and supported, and fulfills their mental, emotional, cognitive, and physical needs. And we're going to do that as a staff by trying to ensure that all teachers are being responsive to student data and student needs. And that last piece really came out of root cause work. I would say that's probably the most impactful thing we've done as a school improvement team thus far this year, is really taking a look at our data and then trying to determine like what's the reason why we're seeing some of the things that we're seeing. And at Ben Franklin, one of the larger areas of concern is around literacy and our student data as it relates to literacy. So through that, our team decided that the reason, or one of the root causes behind that, is because we're not responding to that student data or to student needs in the way that we need to in our Tier 1 instruction. So that's one thing we're looking to kind of connect all those pieces throughout the year and center all of our improvement efforts around one central question for our staff, which is how can I work differently to better deliver that universal instruction so that all students have access to the curriculum? How are we planning for the variability within our students from the start? Kind of what Dr. Mo was talking about with that universal design, to make sure that we're hitting all kids and we're not just like shooting for the middle, but we're getting the edges as well right away from the start by planning in advance, considering where students are coming in, using pre-assessment data, like all those little pieces of evidence that inform us about where students are at. So that involves specific action steps around high-performing teams. So what are our teachers doing when they're collaborating with one another? How are we implementing the curriculum? Like what are the nuances to using a resource to meet standards? And then how are we presuming competence in our students and really working on meeting their needs as learners so they're ready to learn? Because if they're not ready to learn, it doesn't really matter how we're delivering the curriculum. They're not going to take it in. So those are some of our big action steps. Am I taking questions now, or am I waiting, or I don't know?
I say go through all of them and then.
Okay, that's fair. Perfect. Thank you.
See, Countrydale, you guys, can you do the alphabetical elementary? I think you got it.
Sitting like in order, it's perfect.
Oh, that's right. In my type A world, it's already alphabetical.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Shauna LaPlante. I'm the principal at Countrydale. I would say the last year and a half or so, our school has really been learning a lot about presuming competence in our students and in other teachers and colleagues and everything like that. So we've continued that work. It's evolved, I would have to say. And it's our hope that by the end of the year, Countrydale will ensure that all students are provided access to opportunities in an inclusive environment where both children and adults are seen through their strengths. We will presume competence in one another always and confront barriers by empowering those around us to see everybody's greatest potential. So it's kind of funny because some of my next comments have actually changed than what's on your paper in front of you. So at the point that I was filling this out, I had connected with my school improvement team, and we talked about like what's been some of our greatest learning, where have we seen the most impact, and we felt like it was really the work that we did around analyzing some of our ELA standards in our school within our grade level teams, and it was specifically to improve comprehension and again increase student independence. So that's all true still, and then I thought that some of our next steps would include digging into the key ideas and details standards at some of our next staff development meetings and professional development, things like that. But then we had a really good school improvement team meeting just this morning, so I will tell you that our plan has shifted, which is great, right? That's all part of the continuous improvement process. So we'll continue to meet with our grade level teams, and we have plans to continue to connect vertically, because our teachers talk a lot about like, oh yeah, it's great to meet with first grade, but I really need to know what's going on in kindergarten, but also you know, the grade above me, second grade and things like that. So we'll continue that, but we're going to shift gears a little bit after our conversations today, and we're going to be digging into some of the foundational reading skills and strategies that would focus more so around like phonemic awareness and things like that, all the way up to 5th grade. So that's just like one of the things we're really excited. Middle school, I know the conversation was a little bit, Linda, you asked about like working in isolation. I will tell you, this is, I think, my 9th year. I've never worked a day by myself. And even with the new team behind me, like we connect with each other every day. I talk to principals at some level every day. Countrydale's going to be moving into doing some instructional rounding, which I connected with Jenna, and obviously she's at the middle school. So a lot of great work ahead of us that we're all really excited about.
Aren't they so good they even sat in order almost?
Good evening. I'm Ashley Imperiali, principal at Pleasant View Elementary. We all have some similar goals, obviously, because we're trying to turn those gears and be in alignment. But at Pleasant View, specifically, we went into the year really wanting to engage in continuous learning about high-performing classrooms, specifically so that Pleasant View can ensure all of our students are provided access and opportunities to an inclusive environment. So kind of like the visual that Dr. Moe showed earlier, like how are we opening from being intentional from the get-go in making sure we're reaching all kids our first time around. Part of that, though, is building staff capacity around inclusive practices, and obviously also just building those high-performing teams, because we can't operate in isolation. A term we use a lot are trying to take those islands of excellence. So where are there really good pockets of things happening in our building, and spread it to everyone, because we know that will increase all students' sense of belonging and opportunity within the school environment. So at this point in the year, we just wrapped up trimester 1. At Pleasant View, our most impactful step we've taken so far is really defining what high-performing classrooms look like, sound like, feel like, kind of having a standard, norm to operate off of, so we're all talking the same language. Specifically doing that in grade level teams, because obviously what we want to see high performing in a classroom in 5th grade looks different than a K-4 room. And then we really had each team target one barrier that, if that's our ideal state, like what's getting in the way from getting to that at this point, so we could really focus on that in trimester 1 and keep coming back to that and sharing successes in different rooms, and working through challenges in others. Moving forward in the year, we've really now started, now that we are operating on the same language and kind of expectation of what high-performing classrooms look like, we're working on rebooting what high-performing teams, like how they work together, how we effectively collaborate. We have a lot of new people at Pleasant View, so trying to really hone and define what do we want out of our teams and how are we getting the most impact out of it so that it benefits students.
Good evening. I'm Janine Bombian. I'm the principal at Robinwood, so another new face here to the district. So our impactful statement at Robinwood was edited multiple times. So earlier today in that presentation about the writing process, I've experienced that with my SIT team and my school improvement plan. But we finally got to a crystal clear focus at Robinwood. So we are hoping by the end of the school year to have a clear whole child focus that is easily interpreted by all staff and stakeholders. So our school improvement goals were kind of handed to staff in the past, and they just kind of went through the motions, but they really didn't have any ownership of that. So we have created a very clear and easily understood and interpreted plan for teachers to have that impactful change in their practice. One of the biggest steps that we have taken as a staff is at 2 months ago, our building our building staff meeting during PD was all around that universal support for all learners, but around social emotional development. So kids come in with their invisible backpacks, and we don't know what has happened prior in the night or the day before they walk through the doors at Robinwood. And so we have high expectations of all of our learners, but if we are not meeting their basic needs, none of that is going to be achieved. So we focus a lot on different levels of emotional regulation and being able to have those universal supports available for all students, not just with students that have plans that say they need things. So we really started at that universal level with getting basic needs met so that we can do that heavier, harder work throughout the day. So that's been really fun to see. We had our first pep rally, and we did a focus around the zones of regulation. So that was exciting. What we look forward to continuing to do is a lot of what others have shared, but really focusing on what high-performing teams looks like. Each grade level at Robinwood, including myself, there's a new member. So figuring out how we work as productive adults, being able to challenge one another for the better, not to one up or have any I gotcha moments. So we are really working through that high-performing teams rubric, having teams reflect on where they see themselves and how they can see themselves improving and supporting one another. And once those are functioning and our gears are turning smoothly, then we will have purposeful planning and instruction, and we will see those student outcomes at Robinwood. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Bridget Mowbray. I'm the principal at Southwood Glen, and our impact statement this year is around literacy, both in closing gaps for our students in literacy and then also raising our literacy scores. So that came out of some work from last year. We did a lot of root cause analysis, and when Dr. Moe was showing the example of kind of the red to the yellow to the green, we knew that we had a long, we had quite some jumps to make to get into that green. So we had a 3-year plan, and we're in year 2. Year 1 was a lot of root cause work, interviewing students and really looking at a variety of data points. We knew we needed to get better. We wanted to really identify in what ways specifically. So the impact statement is about raising scores and closing gaps in that area through intentional planning that includes increasing connections to standards and then using our professional learning communities to support all learners and remove any barriers. The most impactful step so far has been about supporting that grade level teamwork when teams get together and do that real intentional planning around reading units specifically. So one of the things is looking more closely at our standards, and rather than using our curriculum as the purchase materials that we're using, really getting intentional about our own students, our own learners, what they're saying about their experiences, what a first grader is saying about what are you working on today as a learner, and making sure that we're being so intentional that our students are answering about the learning rather than I'm trying to move up a level or I'm trying to, the kinds of answers that we were getting. So through a lot of different data points, we identified just a need for us to go back and to look at those units. We have a lot of strength in the team, and for them to be able to really look at that and think about our students and what they know about their learners and where they needed to spend more time and slow down, and things that they needed to really put an emphasis on and things that they could spend less time on. So that's been the most impactful step so far. I agree with Shauna in that it's changed a little bit since I wrote that up there, but at the time we were really looking forward to continuing the work in this collaborative ownership, and that came out of our 3rd goal, which was more about employee engagement and this idea that we're all here for all students and for all of each other. So in some ways where we are running into some barriers, knowing that it's really the team that gets us through. So that has been great, and work that we're continuing to do, and making sure that all people, kind of everyone in the building, is there for all students in all ways. But the other work that we're kind of aligning to and working through right now on our school improvement team is the data protocol and data story that Dr. Mo just introduced. We have been digging into EDIS and using that to identify that lower 25th percentile and kind of doing that work on the SIT team. I'm excited about the work of having that be something that we talk with our entire building about, and we have, but I think digging deeper into that and having that be something where our SIT team members become leaders and bring that back to their own grade level meetings and really lead some of that data work. So that's some of the exciting next steps for Southwood Glen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Rosinski, principal at Forest Park.
I'm John Brandis, Associate Principal at Forest Park.
Good evening, Jordan Stevens, Associate Principal at Forest Park.
Some of the work at Forest Park is really centered around this idea that Forest Park is a big ship. And so when we think of all the pieces of a big ship, we really wanted to focus on how can we create a climate and culture of collective ownership. So meaning all the pieces of that ship are working collectively to meet the needs of our students. So we're doing that a little bit by celebrating success when things are going really well and recognizing the good work that our staff and students are doing. And we also are really committed to the closing gaps by demonstrating collective ownership to ensure that all students have access to high quality learning experiences in an inclusive environment. Jordan will talk a little bit about this, but one of the ways we're doing that is we know that there's great things happening around our building. So how can we really capitalize on the high yield strategies in classrooms? And one of the ways we'll do that is through instructional rounding. So the idea that the expertise lies within the classroom. So how can we get educators into classrooms, first by building trust, to really observe what others are doing and then replicate that in their own classrooms. Shauna mentioned that they were going to pilot that or look into that, and then, you know, really inviting them over to Forest Park to look at that rounding process, and then you create that cohesiveness between collaboration amongst the district when we really are looking into being better. So I'll let Mr. Stevens.
Yeah, just speaking to the action plan in regards to the most impactful piece would be our professional learning communities and really the collective ownership piece that Principal Rosinski mentioned, and leveraging the resources available to us that Dr. Mo mentioned as far as our instructional coaches. This is my first year in an administrative role at Forest Park, but I would say this is the most we've utilized administration, instructional coaches, leveraging the school improvement team to go enter into the professional learning communities and really guide this track as far as school improvement goes. Our vision as far as instructional rounding, like Principal Rosinski mentioned, is to really just leverage our high quality instructors that we have and utilize those strategies so that we can learn from one another.
Yeah, so looking at Forest Park moving forward and beyond, I think we spent a lot of time this year really focusing on the culture. We have a lot of new staff, a new administration team, and we've been through a lot this year, so we're really focusing on that culture piece first and knowing that we can learn a lot from each other. There's so many great things that are happening across our building, whether it be from the tech ed field to a math classroom, that it's really important for our teachers to build that trust in each other to see what's happening across our building. So really having that trust and creating that environment where our teachers are comfortable going into other classrooms and really seeing what's happening and bringing those strategies back to their own classroom, because we know those high yield strategies have a great impact on our students. It comes from the medical field, and we learn a lot from the medical field for medical rounds. Why not do it in the educational setting too? Have teachers go into other classrooms, really learn from each other, talk about it, and then develop a plan on how they want to bring that success to their own classroom. So that idea that before that was mentioned, how are we like sharing out this the great things that are happening across our building? This is one way through instructional rounding that Forest Park is going to do that.
Oh boy.
Music stopped.
I mean, there's 5 chairs, there's only 4 of us.
Lucky there's only 3 chairs.
Right? Good evening, everybody. So, Mike Follow, high school principal.
Hi, I'm Claire Bastian, Associate Principal.
Joey Jonas, Associate Principal.
Brian Karalevich, Associate Principal.
Okay, so one way that we approached vision planning at the high school was actually through our way of looking through writing a story. So what you have is actually kind of like the last chapter, like the final page, and so I'm going to read you the whole thing. So once upon a time, there was a school in southeast Wisconsin that ensured that upon graduation, all students would be ready for college or a career of their choosing. Every day, students and staff remained committed to continuous personal growth. One day, a teacher team who was feeling as if their toolkit was running low met together and shared their strategies along with data to get the input of their colleagues who share expertise in their content or grade level. Because of that, the team learned from one another, realizing that although they could search day and night for new strategies to try, their colleagues knew the students and their needs better than any resource. Because of that, the staff collaborated regularly, modeling for other teacher teams the benefits of this work. They shared the data, learned from each other, and never stopped in their commitment to meet the needs of all students. Until finally, the school developed a culture of collaboration and realized that their greatest resource they could ever lean on is each other. So really thinking about that collaboration and how we have the greatest resources within our building and that we can continue to build everybody's toolkit in order to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all students.
And one of the ways to meet the needs of all learners is to plan for learner variabilities. Like Dr. Mo shared, we've used the afternoon when we have our building time on PD days to really help our staff learn more about universal design and how they can make an impact in the classroom with that. And then additionally, we've continued to leverage advisory so that our students have a connection to a caring adult and then to other peers within their grade level, and then also to help create a pathway for them to be successful after high school. Just to give a plug to EDIS, we use that almost every advisory. It's a way to gather grade data in a really efficient way. And then additionally, we've used it in the past to review college and career readiness data individually at a student level. It color codes the scorecard for each student. We can then see on the report, you're red here, here's what you might want to look at for courses for next year. So some of those things are occurring during advisory as well.
And in addition, our next step, the one that we want to talk about and that we're most excited about is just building the overall capacity of our teams. We believe that the work that we're going to do is going to be the result of high-performing teams, so we keep wanting to get better in those collaborative groups. And we want to, with our school improvement team, I think at our last meeting, they were asking for just protocols or ways to get better at utilizing data. So we're going to be modeling at our next meeting just some data analysis protocols that then they can take with their teams, and we'll give them a couple resources they can use with their teams. But we talked a little bit earlier about just the amount of data we have, and Joey mentioned what we use EDIS for specifically, but we started the year knowing that that was a resource that we're going to be able to get timely data in the hands of our teachers in a very easy way. So we started even in the summer with them accessing student information, IEPs, 504 plans, which are all available there rather than having to wait for a case manager to print them off. They would have them even before day one, and then they can plan instruction to meet the variety of needs that are in that classroom. And when learning a new program or a new tool or whatever, we feel it's best to learn in context. So that was something everybody needed, information about their students. So we taught them how to navigate through EDIS. And since then, we've been, just introducing other pieces that can be gleaned off of EDIS. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from our teachers. So we're well positioned at this point to be looking at data in teams and selecting what pieces really matter most to determine the impact of our actions and the opportunities moving forward.
And if you would have heard tactics that maybe rhyme with the other buildings, and for us, we have something unique in the sense of advisory, but it's not that different than talking about social emotional learning or learners being ready or feeling belonging in their school at an elementary. So that's one of our glows from that first quarter, and we think about that data literacy and using data to know your impact and then be responsive to your learners and do that in teams. Right, that really ties into some of the same things you're hearing from our colleagues across the system as well. So a lot of similar work, just again, different contexts, but it's really exciting to hear those things. And we are able to collaborate, fairly often, and each of us, I'm not sure if you're aware, along with a member of the district team. We've been doing collaboration across the district as well, going and seeing practice in classrooms, and even in some cases seeing school improvement teams in other areas, or PLCs meet. So those are things where we have that opportunity as well. Admin from each level, plus a district leader, seeing practice in different ways across our buildings. So it's really, there's great things that kind of help us all learn from each other. And again, you can't help but walk in another classroom or another school and learn something. It's a great thing we get to do every day. So.
Thanks, guys.
Any questions for any of our building leaders, or feedback or thoughts?
I like to thank the leaderships of all the schools. I know that the work which you guys do is the essence of the district coherence plan and carrying it out. So thank you so much for what you guys do. As a district, we really appreciate. It's a hard work, and we are only expecting the best results as such. Thank you.
Anybody have questions?
And thank you for matching. I really like that. Be kind.
They dress alike every day. It's really
Claire, what do you have to do to get the same color shirt?
Yeah, right? You're like,
I like yours better,
The
but
rookie wears the light blue.
Good girl. Thank you all.
Please go home and sleep.
Yeah. I mean, or you stay.
No, if you don't mind, I just want to do one last shout out from the behind the scenes. So I'm sure you know that getting ready for that report, there's lots of people that got to make me look good preparing that data and getting those reports, and our principal too. So thank you for that. And if we don't mind, we're going to encourage our principals to leave and not stay for the rest of the meeting. Thank you, guys.
I would say that I heard a lot of people say that we're excited about the work ahead, and I appreciate the work you put in, but we're excited about the work ahead as well. So thank you very much.
Oh, and just one more thing. No, I'm just kidding. Every time you stood up and somebody spoke. Thank you. I think I did the quick math, and there's like 22 children of our leadership team at home right now waiting to be tucked in. So hopefully you get to get those last minute books and kisses tonight. Or you go do whatever you need to do, because nobody will see this video for a few days.
Very strategic.
There's no timestamp on this. We'll move to curriculum continuous improvement process update. Mr. Blessington, Ms. Sundstrom, please.
You want to switch to mine? There has to be a better way. Were you thinking that as I was getting this from underneath my feet?
I just was waiting for you to stop pulling. It was like,
like a magic
like a clown car or something. Like they just kept coming.
This is the way. This is it.
What?
Oh, there we go.
Thanks.
I don't think those other ones are. All right, good evening, everybody. We are happy to be here today. We think what we have just put life to the executive summary that you received in your board packet. Reflecting on just where it fell in the agenda today, I think it complements what you just heard. So hopefully you see some connectiveness to what we're going to share with you today. Just have a few things we want to put to life. This is obviously an information item that we're going to be going through with you today. So we're excited to share a couple things with you. One, just some highlights about the FPS Curriculum Continuous Improvement Project. One, I think last year Ms. Sundstrom shared with this board that we moved to this continuous improvement model starting last school year. So having a chance to operationalize it this year during the school year has been really exciting. One of my highlights, and both of our highlights, is really seeing increased engagement in the curriculum revision process. During each of our 6 professional learning days, or gear up sessions, we have all of our teachers across the system are involved with that process, which is really, really exciting. And I think this process, is very unique with what we're doing in Franklin. Our teachers have a better understanding how curriculum evolves. So you heard about our standards prioritization work in ELA, but that's also going on in social studies and some other areas. So just
we're excited. Those are just like 3 highlights that I want to pull out from the exec summary, and you're going to go through a couple examples with us.
Yeah, there's no way we can update you on absolutely all the work that's happening by hundreds of people, but I know you got a little bit of an overview like a month and a half ago when we came to you with some of the programming changes, so you saw hints of what's happening like in PE or computer science or tech ed is what we talked about before. So I thought I would maybe highlight some of the other departments that we haven't like been able to update you on recently. So, and then I tried to think about like, when we talk about continuous improvement, teams are in all different places, and you kind of reviewed that again. And it is pretty innovative work. So one of the teams that's really involved in that analysis state right now is our art team. So K-12 art. This team involves every single one of our art educators, and Shauna LaPlante, our administrator at Countrydale, has been doing their like face-to-face facilitation during our PD days for their curriculum work. What's kind of exciting is essentially right before COVID came upon us, the state had released some new art standards, and so the team has really been delving into what does this mean and how is this so exciting for our student learning. The team developed an FPS art vision, so we put that there for you to kind of see around all students through exploration in art and design will become innovative problem solvers and creative communicators. And what has the team kind of been doing when they get together, in addition to kind of ensuring that across vertically, educators have this shared vision of what teaching and learning looks like in art. They've deeply investigated these standards and prioritized them. Like Bob was saying, many teams, our goal with curriculum, right, is like how do we teach and learn in a way that helps our students achieve their goals, which is our standards. And then also what's kind of exciting with art right now is we're also working, Shauna and I are working a lot with the DPI representative for art. So his name is Chris Gleason, and he actually drove all the way from Sun Prairies, where he lives, and he drove all the way to join our team on the PD day last time. So he had to get here by 7:30 and work with that team, but it's cool. They got to see somebody who was like teacher of the year in the arts a few years ago, now works for the DPI and could help them like see these standards coming to life and what could it look like. So inspiring for them, reinforcing that like the work we're doing is the right work, and kind of an outside person to even collaborate with. So I thought it could be kind of a cool way to know that behind the scenes, yes, I'm on the phone with DPI and the experts they have lots of times to kind of see what's a cool next piece. And then I thought a team that's kind of in the stage 2 of our work is our K-12 social studies team. So this team is very broad. It includes representatives of social studies at the elementary, middle, and high school level. It includes some of our instructional coaches. It includes Jill Poglace, who's like our library media specialist, and then John Brandis, who is the AP at the middle school, Steph Jewell at the elementary level, Brian Karolevich at the high school level, have all been collaborating together for a couple of years around the new social studies standards that we have. They too have a shared vision, which you can see up there, empowering students to become informed and active members of a global society. And they have done amazing work. We have done, I'm also meeting with this team, prioritizing the social studies standards, and there are also some environmental literacy and sustainability standards that the state has paired with those. And they have articulated a coherent scope and sequence for our students K-12. And an exciting aspect of some of their work right now is that we are deeply delving into what does inquiry in social studies look like. So a big shift in the social studies standards over the last couple of years has been the lens through which social studies is taught and looking at it through inquiry. So like the notion of like a framework of thinking around teaching being inquiry. So the team right now is in, like, if you look at stage 2, there's parts about professional development, right? That team is jointly learning around inquiry with me too. And then in our stage 3, you guys have definitely had updates about like our science team. We've had essentially our K-10 science, along with some of the elective sciences at the high school, has been, would be living in stage 3, I would say.
At this point, this work lives with absolutely every teacher who teaches science in our district, and it's supported by every administrator at every building. We also have science lead teachers at the K-8 level who do a lot of support. Our instructional coaches support me. So there's a lot. This is like the living work. I think you guys over the last year or two have seen like some of the school presentations have been related to the science. So you've got a few glimpses there, but the implementation work is pretty broad at this point with science. We did do like a phased in system. So we're like in the third year for most of this work. And so teams are maybe adding their last units this year, things like that, last improved new units going in. So for example, like our elementary teachers last year added an additional science unit, and then this year adding another science unit that is new to them with our standards and everything. So our science lead teachers have supported specific development in team meetings, in PD, and all of those pieces. And I think now a lot of the work we're seeing, in addition to the day-to-day lesson planning, is kind of big picture thinking around what does it mean to be a science learner, and how do we like embed the feedback we give to that work. So it's kind of cool to see their efforts. And then a team that's kind of in the stage 4 that we haven't maybe talked about too much recently is the 612 business team. So this again lives with absolutely every business teacher in the district and kind of the work that they're doing day to day. Their recent work has been related to a subset of the standards that they work with. So the business team works with the personal financial literacy standards, and they were just released by the state very recently. So the team spent some time at the end of last year digging into what those are, and then have kicked this year off really thinking about what does student learning look like through those new standards at the middle and the high school. And what's very cool with their refined work is that they can, like, they're kind of a small enough team. It's really nice. We're a small enough district that they can really have like all of their expertise dig into what could this look like at middle school? What could this look like at high school? So it's kind of a fun collaborative piece inside of a team that has really like a lot of different subjects. So sometimes it can be like, if teachers are teaching all these kind of standalone classes, what's that kind of shared collaboration piece they do? But with this, it's kind of cool being grounded in these goals and these standards. They've been able to like vertically talk. So it's awesome. The amount of work that like teachers are doing regularly kind of gives me goosebumps. So I don't know. I don't know if you have specific questions either about this or other teams. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, so thank you very much. This really helped clarify what you presented to us last year. And my question is, what prompts a curricular group to be sort of kicked from stage 4 back to stage 1?
Yeah.
Here's why I ask. Because one of the, you know how I am about literacy, I always ask about it. So that's it. Literacy K-8 is currently listed on here in stage 4, but our scores that were presented in our earlier presentation would suggest to me that maybe just, and I know it's continuous improvement. It's not just that we're, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be totally transparent, right? Like this is not as clean as our cute little like pie chart
Sure,
looks like,
yes.
I think. So where that bridging between ongoing monitoring and where that starts launching into study, how I can say that this is the piece. I mean, I think right now, Bob and I would say, well, literacy's in this 4-to-1 bridge because they are.
As long as you said 4-to-1, I'm
Yeah, and I tried to clean it up initially. I was going to be like, it's like 2-to-3, 3-to-4, and then I thought that might seem kind of chaotic
well, it's
on my little
especially
chart.
confusing from 4-to-1, right?
Yeah.
Because it sort of implies that when you reach 4, you're done, but that's not it.
Yeah, and I think we're doing something really innovative. Bob said it at the beginning, like what we're doing for review is a different way of thinking about it. I think like many districts and we in the past really thought about like here's a beginning and here's an end, and we're really saying that isn't the case. Like everybody's in this and really committed to it. So there's pieces of what we're doing with literacy right now, which is like prioritizing the standards and thinking that really is stage 1. And there's pieces that are kind of stage 4, like what some of the principals were talking about, like what they're doing in their buildings is essentially stage 4. It's like, we're seeing this response, now we're taking this action. So
I'm very, no, that's a great answer. I'm very comfortable with it.
how long are each of the stages, and I suspect they're maybe longer or shorter for instance, the difference between art and literacy?
Yes.
But maybe you can go into that a little bit more.
Well, I mean, you can certainly, I do think it depends. I mean, a number of factors. One is like, what is our current data showing us? And you had a good glimpse into that today. So I think that impacts it. I mean, I know there's some districts around that will say like a whole process, you know, an adoption consideration or some changes happen every 6 or 7 years. I think that this model allows us to be responsive to not only like current research and best practice, but what is our local data showing us? And as we learn more, we do better. So I think it really depends. And really part of what I see as driving that is our standards work. Our standards tell us what students should know and be able to do, and then we prioritize. And when we talk about like a guaranteed and viable curriculum, that helps also drive this engine of this curriculum revision process. So it is not as like black and white in terms of like, you know, there's definitely a process to go through. But when we start looking at standards, for example, and if we're considering like what we're doing with social studies right now, we'll look at standards. Do our curricular resources line up with what our standards, and then help supports course syllabi, UBD. I think it really depends, and then trying to connect the work. So English language arts is not living in a separate box from social studies. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's very fluid depending on like what current needs are.
I think you answered it really well. It's perhaps less linear than it used to be, than we used to think of it as.
Yes.
Or than you used to think of it as.
Absolutely.
What drives the changes in standards? The state's always looking at, we're not driving those changes here, huh?
The state, yeah. They have a whole review process.
Then, who is,
The Department of Instruction, like,
is there any local input or any parent, how do they? They have reps.
yeah, when they do it, they do like public input, and they also have like a diverse stakeholder team that does the actual standards creation. So there'll be teachers on it, there'll be administrators, depends on the kind of standards experts in the field and those pieces.
And do they have a specific cycle of review too, so you kind of know when to kick out new stuff?
Yeah, I mean, they say they have a review at a certain timeline, but, you know,
Can they legislate new standards? No, they're not doing that.
they don't legislate the standards, but
Okay.
They ask local control of like making sense of the standards. So we have a whole bunch, and we never be able to teach all of them in depth. So then like the local decisions we make is when we start to prioritize that, and it gets really messy in what that looks like. And those are conversations we have with all stakeholders as we like figure that process out.
I guess this is kind of like the first time I'm hearing us prioritize standards.
Yeah, I think
So
this is
that-
like us unveiling a little of the behind the scenes work. So when they develop a list of standards, they can be hundreds of pages long, and there's a lot of research that comes out that says like you would need like 24, 25 years if you were going to teach all the standards that are like listed in in all the standards docs for our students. But obviously we don't have them for 25 years. So like a very work that all districts do is to take standards documents, look at the needs within the district, and do this thing that we're calling prioritization, which is really what is this guaranteed viable curriculum that all students are going to get. So it also, through the conversations, is a means that like staff really become comfortable with the expectations and what looks like the way standards are written are like at this grade level or at this grade band, what should students be able to know and do and things like that.
I think that the tie back, and you heard a lot of assessment pieces today when you think about like the forward exam, like that, you know, they're working on developing an updated version of like our standards, you know, those are really our state standards and assessment of how we're doing towards those state standards. So that's where like the connection goes back. And honestly, it can be really challenging in terms of when we talk about prioritized standards, like we have all these and like, you know, in some cases, we're going to say, why don't you just tell us what those priority standards, it just doesn't work that way. So there's some, it's nice to have the autonomy of some local decisions, but it also comes with some challenges and kind of sorting through all of that. You know, we're doing the best we can is like, in terms of making sense of all that, so then our kids have what they need to be successful.
Thank you.
So as we're just wrapping up, and one of our, we get, Dr. Mo mentioned this during her agenda item, her remarks about like continuous improvement. So this is an example, and we get this from all of our Gear Up sessions, but during our PD, our curriculum continuous improvement process, we're asking about an alignment, a personal growth, and tangible takeaways. That's for every time we do, and the curriculum continuous improvement is no different. So, teachers are asked to rate. So that's a look at some of our data. Obviously, they rate it from 1 to 5 stars. We use that data, and we have a lot of we'll look at the November data that's shared with facilitators. So then they're actually, making tweaks. So we're like really tight. It's really been a nice way for us to continuously improve. So we're responsive to what teachers are asking us. I just highlighting that. And I think really opportunities and next steps, me onboarding to Franklin, some of the things that are noticed, and from perhaps maybe some opportunities on being able to do our best work is really looking at our Franklin policy around and guidelines around evidence-based high quality grading practices that really align to like best practice, what we know, what research is telling us. Continuing leveling up. We've started that process, and we know that's incurred in science and math. We're going to continue that work in literacy. That some of you are going to, it's a little bit of appetizer for our January meeting, and then really a commitment to implementation of high performing teams and professional learning communities. So that's like all part of it. So those are like, there's layers and there's policies that will help us with improving this process overall. And with that, we'd open up to any questions or comments.
Any further questions? Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Cromie, the resolution authorizing participation in the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative, please.
Yeah, now we get into the really exciting stuff. So now really ratchet down. Essentially, the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative, WISC is its term, is simply another avenue for us to invest dollars in. The board has to approve a resolution in order for us to join. We don't have to invest any dollars in it. Again, all that investment falls under the state statute, so you're buying a CD, whatever you're getting an interest rate. But I'm simply bringing it forward as another potential option to shop rates. So they're very high right now. So the more opportunities we have, the better chance we have to maximize our dollars while they're being used for cash flow.
All right, does anybody have any questions?
And these CDs are generally 3 to 9 months, that's it, 3 to 9 months?
You could buy them as long as you want. I typically don't like to wrap up money for more than 6 months. I was just providing rates from a 3 to 9 month standpoint. I also like to tier them, so buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that we know we're always going to have some cash coming in. The second, probably another key component of this, is we buy them in increments of $250,000 so that they're always FDIC insured as part of that. So, for instance, right now we have $5 million anywhere from 3 to 6 months with ADM. We have 20 separate CD issuances up to $250,000, again, to ensure that. And those right now are ranging from about 3.5% to 4.5%, depending on the length and the multiple banks that they're then going out to essentially sell them. They're really a facilitator to banks nationwide.
So they're safe then, guaranteed.
Yep. They're no different than anything else we're doing with the local government investment pool, ADM. It's like going to Heiser to buy a car, or you go to Rosen. It's just another place to buy one.
And we just want more options then?
Correct.
And is this a contract that binds us for a number of years, or is it one time?
Simply gives us the opportunity to walk through the door. It's like your Sam's Club card.
Okay.
Once you have it, you can use it, but you never have to go.
And does the card cost us anything?
$0.
Okay.
Do we have to get a picture taken?
You do not have to get a picture taken. I think you might have to do a blood draw on a social security number, though. I'll take care of that.
Wonderful.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the resolution authorizing Franklin Public Schools to join the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Board Clerk's Report, Notice of Election. Mrs. Larson, please.
Yes. Notice is hereby given that an election is to be held in the Franklin Public School District on Tuesday, April 4th, 2023, and the following offices are to be elected to succeed the present incumbents listed below. The term of the office for school board member is 3 years, beginning on Monday, April 24th, 2023. Office School Board Member Alan Alexandrovich, School Board Member Linda Witkowski. Notice is further given that a campaign registration statement and a declaration of candidacy must be filed no later than 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023, in the office of the School District Clerk, 8255 West Forest Hill Avenue, Franklin, Wisconsin. Notice is further given that if a primary is necessary, the primary election will be held on Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. The Franklin Public School District boundary map can be found on the district website, www.franklin.k12.wi.us. That is my report.
Thank you very much. The Treasurer's Report is available in the Board Docs Library. Board Liaison Reports. Does anybody have any Board Liaison Reports? Linda?
Well, there was an SWSA meeting. I did manage to get onto that, and I think I'll just work with Annalee and we'll bring a report back maybe January.
Sure.
I think the key thing is that, are we planning any conversations with our legislators with the budget coming up?
Yeah, we've had ongoing conversations with them, and we'll continue to speak with them.
I had lunch with Mr. Bradley last week, and it sounds like the budget is going to be coming out a little bit later than it normally does, but I think we should have ongoing conversations, and he is certainly open to that. And I heard from Representative Wickers today in an email this afternoon that I just saw saying that he'd like to work with us as well. So hopefully that's the case.
Any reason the budget's coming out later? On political reasons?
Political reasons is
Okay.
the guess.
I will say that, based on the meeting, this is really a very unique time in terms of money is available to do something big. I mean, they're talking 6.6 billion, which has never been seen before. So it's a very unique time to get a message out there so that we get what it's an opportunity to do that. They can't say we don't have the money. That's the important thing that we have to recognize. It's so unique. And the conversation is we have to be very clear on what we're asking for, and we can't get sidelined into other issues. I think that's difficult because every district has a different financial picture, and it can be easy to get sidetracked in a conversation with a legislator. And also the formula is difficult, and legislators don't really understand it. So that's what I heard.
Agree. And one of the things that Mr. Bradley said is he's trying to be a legislator that listens to the constituents and doesn't go in with preconceived notions. He also realizes that there's money available, and the schools are an important place to spend that money. And we talked about special education funding and how there's a shortfall. And he also committed to being here for the key communicators meeting in February. So I will keep reminding him of that. But I agree. It's important that we keep dialogue going. Anybody else have any board liaison reports?
I do. In
terms of student services, I am now on the Student Wellness Committee, which is, I guess, was thriving before COVID and then was kind of like, "Meow." And we're coming back and we're going to come back strong. So we just had our first meeting, just kind of setting some priorities and things, but that will be a committee that is active and looking at our student wellness. So I'm excited to be part of that.
All right, school and community engagement reports.
I did attend a fashion show and it was fabulous.
Wasn't it fabulous?
It was fabulous.
Have we not had a meeting since then?
I don't think
No,
so.
we haven't.
And they're still playing on Facebook, so. And also I did.
Done. Putting it on Facebook. That was the last post.
Okay. Also, I did volunteer at the book sale at Southwood Glen because I
Oh, nice.
curious to see how books are doing in that environment. And I did, of course, I couldn't buy.
What'd you
I
pick
had to
up?
buy a book
What'd you get?
because it's Out of My Mind. It's a New York bestseller by Sharon Draper, and I have finished it. And I'm going to give it to Miss Cody, and you could give it to a school library.
Well, excellent.
Unless a board member would like to read it, but it's.
It's been read many
We'll know where
times
to
in my
find it,
house.
yeah.
Many times. It's a favorite.
They did mention the middle school play earlier. Obviously, no, we haven't been to that yet, but the middle school play is on Friday. Shameless plug. Both my daughter and Ann's daughter are in it. So Friday evening.
Is it only one showing?
It is only one showing. There is a Friday during the day show.
All the fifth
that
graders.
I bet I could get you in.
Yeah, we could probably sneak you in.
I'm curious, but I already have an engagement Friday night.
Yeah,
The
I think
fifth
it's-
graders across the district are coming to see the show on Friday at the Saber
yeah,
Center.
I think it's
so
10 o'clock,
9:45.
I'll tell you after
Okay.
the show, or after the meeting.
But that's a really great opportunity too for our younger students to come up and see what they can look forward to at the middle school and from middle school drama club, but then it's performed at the high school, so they can
Oh, it
kind
is
of
at
look ahead to, what does the Saber Center look like? So I think it's a really neat opportunity for all of our students and a great opportunity for the middle school kids to be able to perform more than once. So thank you to the district for supporting that. I know it's hard to get fifth graders from every different building up to the high school. So.
Oh, that's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
It's at 9:45 on Friday
Thank
at the
you.
Saber Center.
It's in the morning. And then we haven't had them yet, but as you mentioned earlier, Annalee, there are quite a few concerts next week. So if you need any kind of holiday spirit, pick a night, head on up to the Saber Center.
And one the following week too.
And the following, yeah, the next.
Middle school is the following week.
Following week.
All right, anyone else? I'm looking for a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statutes 19.851F and 120.13 1C to consider materials related to a student expulsion hearing.
So moved.
Second. All right, can we have a roll call, please?
I vote aye. Mr. Sprague?
Aye.
Mrs. Witkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Alexandrovich?
Aye.
Mrs. Sapersky?
Aye.
Dr. Khan?
Aye.
Dr. Beer?
Aye.
We are in closed session at 8:13.
Thank you. School board member comments, any comments? I'm just really impressed with the principals and the moving forward.
Yep, good team.
So, good presentation. Yes, thank you.
And always fun to have students in the building as well.
In the house.
Yeah. The first young lady was,
Yeah, she was very articulate.
wow.
She has been since she was a kindergartner at Southwood Glen. Yeah.
I talked to her mom at the book sale.
Yeah.
She's got big plans.
Yeah.
All right, future agenda items, review and discussion of proposed WASB resolutions, pre-AP English information discussion, recreation building discussion, Pleasant View Elementary School presentation, open enrollment seats, and communications updates, and those will all be in January. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:17.